In the early 1920s, the American automobile industry was ruled by giants. Henry Ford controlled the roads. General Motors was rising fast under Alfred Sloan's leadership. And most Americans believed there was no room for a third major automaker. But what if the man who built the Third Empire was actually the most disciplined industrialist of them all? What if a railroad employee from Kansas understood mass production better than even Henry Ford? And what if Ford's greatest competitor wasn't an inventor, wasn't a financer, but a machinist? In 1925, a former railroad man with no college degree and no famous name launched a company that would permanently challenge Ford Motor Company. And that man was Walter Percy Chrysler. And here is the question history rarely asks. Did Chrysler outthink Henry Ford, or did he simply wait for Ford to make a mistake? Chrysler was not born into privilege. He was not a visionary like Ford. He was not a Wall Street strategist like Sloan. He was something quieter and perhaps more dangerous. He understood systems. And as we tell this story, I'd like you to consider something. Was Walter Chrysler the most underrated industrialist of the early automobile age? Or was he simply the right man at the right time? Let me know your thoughts in the comments as we go. Walter Chrysler was born in 1875 in Wamego, Kansas. His father was a locomotive engineer for the Kansas Pacific Railway. Railroads were not just transportation at the time, they were survival. When his family moved to Ellis, Kansas, young Walter apprenticed as a machinist in the former Kansas Pacific Railway shops that eventually became part of the Union Pacific Railroad. It was in those shops that he started as just a floor sweeper, but he quickly climbed the ladder to become a machinist. It was there that he learned discipline, precision, mechanics. He learned how these massive machines worked, and more importantly, how equally massive organizations worked. By his early 30s, Chrysler had risen through the ranks of the railroad industry. He was known as efficient, demanding, and tireless. But railroads were becoming an old industry, and a new machine was changing America: the automobile. In 1911, Chrysler did something shocking. He left the stability of the railroad industry to join Buick. Chrysler had never built a car, but Buick needed a production man, someone who could bring order to chaos, and that's where Chrysler thrived. He reorganized manufacturing, he improved efficiency, and he cut waste. Within a few years, Buick was profitable, and Chrysler was earning an extraordinary salary, nearly $1 million a year by some estimates. But there was a problem. His boss was William C. Durant. And Durant, while brilliant, was also reckless. Durant was a deal maker. He was all about expansion at whatever the cost. Chrysler was an operator, focused on the bottom line at all times. Durant expanded General Motors at breakneck speed. Chrysler believed in structure and discipline. The two men clashed repeatedly. By 1919, Chrysler walked away from GM with millions in his pocket. Many would have simply retired. He didn't, because Walter Chrysler was not done. In fact, he was only beginning. In the early 1920s, Dodge Brothers was in trouble. The company had been strong, but after the sudden deaths of John and Horace Dodge, leadership began to falter. Chrysler was brought in to stabilize the company, and he did. He reorganized production, strengthened engineering, and restored public confidence. Once again, he proved something critical. He could fix broken companies. And then he made his boldest move yet. He was about to do the improbable, begin a third automotive empire. But how? In order to accomplish this, he would need to bring in another automobile company. But which one? Being the critical thinker that he was, Chrysler had his sights on the perfect one. In 1925, Walter Chrysler reorganized the failing Maxwell Motor Company and launched a new brand under his own name, Chrysler. It was a daring act. Henry Ford dominated the low-price market. General Motors had mastered multi-brand strategy. So where would Chrysler fit? Chrysler chose engineering. His cars featured high-compression engines, hydraulic brakes, and modern styling. They were affordable, but advanced. And within just a few years, Chrysler Corporation became the third largest automaker in America. The railroad man had built an empire. Henry Ford believed in simplicity. The Model T had ruled the roads for nearly 2 decades, but by the mid-1920s, Ford refused to update it. Chrysler saw opportunity. He offered more power, more comfort, more modern design. Customers noticed. When Ford finally introduced the Model A in 1927, it was no longer unchallenged. Chrysler had arrived. And he wasn't alone. He introduced Plymouth to compete directly with Ford's low-price cars. He introduced DeSoto to fill the middle ground. He built a ladder of brands similar to GM's strategy, but executed with precision. It was disciplined expansion, not Durant-style chaos. Then came 1929. The Great Depression devastated the automobile industry. Luxury marques collapsed. Independent automakers disappeared. But Chrysler endured. Why? Because Walter Chrysler believed in engineering integrity and financial discipline. He avoided reckless acquisitions. He kept production quality high. He managed costs without destroying reputation. By the early 1930s, Chrysler Corporation stood firmly as America's third automotive pillar. Ford, General Motors, Chrysler. The railroad man had secured his place in the automotive industry. In 1930, as the Depression deepened, a gleaming Art Deco skyscraper pierced the New York skyline, the Chrysler Building. For a brief moment, it was the tallest building in the world. Its stainless steel crown reflected ambition. It was not just an office tower, it was a statement. Walter Chrysler had risen from Kansas rail yards to the skyline of Manhattan. Few American industrialists could claim such a journey. Unlike many of his rivals, Walter Chrysler did not flame out dramatically. He gradually stepped back from day-to-day operations in the mid-1930s. He voluntarily handed leadership to capable successors. And while he remained influential, he was never reckless. When he died in 1940, Chrysler left behind a stable corporation, a powerful brand structure, and a company that would survive war, depression, and industry upheaval. He did not die bankrupt like Durant. He did not cling to control like Ford. He built and he institutionalized. Walter Chrysler never became as mythologized as Henry Ford. He did not revolutionize wages. He did not perfect the moving assembly line. And he did not seek headlines. Instead, he built something quieter. He built a system, a disciplined corporation, a structured brand ladder, a company so strong to survive even the Depression, war, and decades of future competition. Ford changed the world. Sloan perfected corporate strategy. But Chrysler, he proved that discipline could challenge dominance. He proved that a machinist could outmaneuver giants. And perhaps most importantly, he built something that endured long after his own name left the boardroom. So here's the question I'd like for you to consider. When we talk about the titans of the early automobile age, was Henry Ford the revolutionary? Was Alfred Sloan the strategist? Or was Walter Chrysler the builder who quietly secured the third pillar of Detroit? Who truly left the strongest legacy? And does Chrysler deserve to be mentioned in the same breath as Ford and Sloan? Or has history underestimated him? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed today's video, please consider supporting this channel by clicking on and investing in one of the links in the description. Have a wonderful day, and you all be blessed.